Hey guys, I'm Krista Foxy. Today I'm gonna try starting a series that my brain's probably gonna fail to keep a schedule on. It's gonna be called Who Are They and What Might I Add? You see, I have a chronic condition called I hyper-focus on characters who don't get enough love or attention, and I end up going overboard with AU ideas in an attempt to make them more cinematic in how they're written and characterized, with hopefully more fleshed out personalities and a story that can be followed and hopefully be liked by those who come across it. I'm basically going up to these characters and asking, hey, you wanna be a fucking movie? I have done this for Swatch, Spamton, Ruve, Sarvante. Yeah, those will come later. But we're gonna start with Task Manager, since, as you can guess, she is one of the biggest characters who takes the reins on my channel. This whip-wielding task training android is found at the end of the fire-spitting painting hallway, past the pottery, and just before you cross the street and fight to get around those goddamn annoying-ass cars with feet who kick you back to the start of the goddamn. She asks if you are ready for your appointment, then asks various questions that will test the player's alphabetical skills in naming her cats. Hey, I'm editing and I realized I was wrong. She says that you're in time for your appointment and then asks if you would help her. But at least it's a yes or no question, so you still have time to go get ready and stuff. Whether you get it right or not, she's still gonna fight you. But at least she was courteous enough to ask if you were ready for the fight, giving the fun gang the opportunity to better prepare. If you visit the kitchen, you'll find a piece of cheese, surrounded by mouse who form a mouse wheel. Act to trap the mouse, forming the wheel to a certain percentage. This person achieved it at 62%, but I hope I'm right in saying maybe over 50. And if you have her recruited, she will interrupt the fight and handle the rest of recruiting them with her task. I don't know how that would work in recruiting it. It kind of feels like she just probably let her task eat the horde of mouse. But whatever, that's a mercy run for you, I guess. When you defeat Roll's card, Swatch tells you that she had spotted him wandering the castle and immediately shocked him to the ground. We don't get much more from her aside from being able to fight her in the dojo and seeing her work the cafe with Swatch. I'm going to assume she's working there. I'm not entirely sure why else she would be just standing there and not really conversating with anyone unless she's acting as security. Also, I'm sorry, but I can't get over the fact that she worked right down the hall from the cafe in the castle and was seen in the cafe with Swatch just right there, and people still called it a crack ship. Seriously, people used to comment on my Swatch Manager work when I first started drawing them and called it a crack ship. And I had to sit back and genuinely wonder if everyone had forgotten what a crack ship actually was. That's like characters from different franchises, and I don't mean Jack Frost and Elsa. To be honest, the style is close enough, and with the way they're written, I can actually kind of see it. I mean the ones that don't make any sense, like SpongeBob and Shrek. Please comment below some more crack ships, because I genuinely love laughing at them. But please don't send me anything cursed. I've been tempted by the internet to soak my eyes with bleach before. Due to her design, the internet has predictably written her off as a femme fatale and merely eye candy, most artists focusing on her appearance and not really giving her much voice. Which, understandable, you worked for that talent, you spent the time and effort to get the experience, and you should be able to draw absolutely whatever you want within a moral event horizon. Listen, I'm editing, and I just realized how hypocritical I might sound about this, so I'm gonna be real with you. I have drawn them being hot. I have drawn her being sexy. I've done this, alright? But here's the deal. I actually gave a shit about expressions and body language. I didn't just balloon her ass up. I didn't have to do that to make her hot. So, I'm sorry, but if you cannot make a character attractive without ballooning their ass or giving them boobs and giving them, like, some weird proportions to get it done, and if you can't just do it off of body poses and expressions alone, then I'm sorry, but that's a skill issue. Like a skill issue in artwork. You gotta work on it, Chief. Expressions and body poses are so important, and if you ain't got it down, I'm sorry, but get back to the drawing board. But I was very disappointed in just how bare bones her personality was, both in-game and as perceived by the fandom, having to go mostly off of bits and pieces, but overall I had a pretty open canvas to work with. And that kind of canvas is my favorite. So, what am I adding? God damn it, Basetown in your freaking jets! We told you not to fly near the neighborhood! I've been working for a while to give her a more complex personality, past, and relationship with the other characters, starting as far back as Season's Greetings, establishing a past friendship with Spamton and a clear willingness to forgive and make up, even after all he's done. She's a ride or die who sees the best in others and wants them to achieve it, being in genuine pain to see them struggle or be upset. I've concocted a little bit of an AU that involves a past for her, having written all the way up to about chapter 8 on a fan fiction I've mentioned before called Corrupted Code. Here's some spoilers for that, so if you desperately don't want that, then I'm sorry, and I know that's going to affect how far this video goes, but I'd recommend you click away now. I'm still writing it, and currently I've been drawing it into a comic that I hope to dub. It's an adventure fic featuring her, Swatch, and Spamton as the main protagonists. Cyber City has fallen to ruin when the You Are an Idiot Trojan Horse and the I Love You virus infiltrate the base code console, corrupting lines of code and affecting the Darkners. With Queen incapacitated, the three have to travel past dozens of puzzle tunnels, reach the console, and evict the threat. When Swatch insists that the two stay behind while they handle it alone, she vehemently insists that she would be perfectly capable of handling the trip. While Swatch spoke with Firefox, she snuck away when Spamton riled an argument between the Swatchlings who had been guarding them. By the way, almost this entire fic, and for the majority of their friendship, Spamton often sits on her back, with his feet placed in the space between her torso and her hips. He's just a little guy. I'm not gonna make him walk all that entire way. You crazy? Spamton expresses concerns about the trip, but is encouraged by Tasque, who draws his attention to his skill in using materials around him to make contraptions or tools. She had spotted it earlier when he instructed her to make a new coffee pot by melting down some dining glasses. Believe me, it was important that they do that. Swatch was both fully not mentally there and extremely tired to the point of low patience without it, and I kinda wanted a reason for it to be mentioned that she's built for mobility in combat. They get a tip from Tinder that the key to get into the puzzle tunnels could be found in a cave, an answer that Swatch was also looking for with Firefox, the entrance of which was towards the top of an old pile of Queen's fighter bot parts. After they get to the top and head in, she shows a significant willingness to save others over herself when the MSI dragon shows itself and prepares to blast fire at the salesman for being in his pile of Bitcoin, game currencies, and achievement trophies. When resisted again later by Swatch, who rushes in fast enough to save them, she firmly demands that she and Spamton join them on this trip for their sake. During almost this entire trip, the trio run into broken or sabotaged puzzles, and she lets frustration dominate her abilities into working up the electric heaters on her hands to punch a metal shape into its slot as molten putty during one of them. It doesn't take too much anger for her to resort to force. She may be all about order, but how she achieves that order can be a bit ruthless. In the song Step Hallway puzzle, she shows a significant skill in acrobatics as she crosses it, but after finding that they have to use the tiles to make a song, she shows an endless amount of empathy and sympathy as she offers her condolences to Sweet Cap and Cakes for the music ban while asking for their help. And later, she both patiently teaches Swatch the dances and pretends to believe that they are simply rusty, as they say, for their pride. She later shows support for an eavesdropping Spamton when the topic of his phone came up, having used it to cut through the corruption to call the musical trio. When he thinks that the two are going to condemn him for using something to get to the top, he is surprised when she finds it fortunate that he found the help and support by another means. She often shows a willingness to assume the most genuine, honest intentions of her friends, which will be her downfall. When the trio find that the hallway had been painted by an unseen protagonist, she works patiently with Swatch to work them up to the instructions Sweet Cap and Cakes had made them, directing them across the room when they had trouble worrying over where they stepped, often missing the beat. By not allowing them to notice that they had stepped onto the tiles, requesting that they only focus on her lead while they practice, she helps them unknowingly pass to the other end seamlessly. Her full abilities are shown when the three find another darkly painted and sabotaged puzzle, facing the You Are an Idiot Trojan Horse, referred to as Yai, after Swatch adds a splash of color to the walkways that had been painted in Vantablack as an attempt to keep them from seeing where they were going. The foe attacks them and is shocked harshly by the android. As the Trojan Horse goes, attacking him only made him split into 6 more, forcing her to take the attention as Spamton helps the injured Swatch across. She uses curved and retractable cleats, gymnastics, her detached hands, and the taser prongs that slide out from her fingertips like claws to leap from puzzle piece to puzzle piece, matching the shapes, and then shorting the controls while dodging the Trojan Horse, so they wouldn't be able to undo her work. I'm making her extra good at evading and moving very quickly, since her body comes apart and snaps together electromagnetically. This is why it kinda bothers me when people give her boobs. Kinda ruins the aerodynamic effect, but I understand the wide hips. She has to have some pretty good pistons in her legs, but the shelf just don't make sense, sorry. When the trio approach another puzzle, made up of revolving steps over a pool of acid to the top where they'd reach a pause switch to keep them out, she expresses great anxiety with the task and requests time to process it. As they rest for the evening, Swatch tells Spamton about how they met her, telling him that they and Queen had gone to the circus in town for some entertainment, excited to see the new acrobatic act. When the lead acrobat, a black cat with white patterns, fumbles a rehearsal performance for Her Majesty, her family members show disdain for her, her siblings berating her and alluding to the fact that their mother will yell at them over failure. When the lead acrobat Tasque retreats to the high bar, Swatch recognizes a loneliness and follows, having a conversation with her. They find that her siblings, Pawera, Wardina, Illustrata, Zip, and her don't really like the positions they're being pushed into. Tasque simply wanted to train the tasks for performances and make routine checks on equipment before shows, quite enjoying organizing and perfecting the safety measures. Her father, Mr. Outlook, had been the one who wanted to keep the innocence of his children safe, resisting their mother, Miss Excel, who wanted to force them into their roles. He had been the stunt biker for the show, but after a conversation with her mother, Mr. Outlook met his fate at the Ring of Fire. I've never seen the suspension on a stunt bike just fall apart like that on a ramp. Believing there had been foul play, Tasque had the plan to reveal this information by using the song Mama's Gun by Glass Animals and dedicating it to her mother verbally before the act. The performance was meant to begin with the interaction between the performance on the ground before she was meant to take off on a set of revolving steps that would deploy when her tasks ran up the ramps to press the buttons, earning them treats. Unfortunately, on the way up, one of the buttons jammed, and as she missed the step, the next one swung out and knocked her sideways into the same ring of fire her brother Zip had been trained to jump. Putting out the flames as fast as they could and rushing her to the castle, Swatch and Queen tried to save her body, but had to cave and download her consciousness into a new one of Swatch's design. They gave her the option to be proclaimed dead and move on with a new life at the castle or go back to her family. With a heavy heart, she believed it would be best she not face her mother again, naming herself dead to the rest of Cyber City and taking up her work at the manor with the Tasques who had followed behind the ambulances. With this knowledge, Spamton sees why she would be so hesitant at the puzzle, but with a bit of advertising, so to speak, he encourages her and convinces her that she could handle it, forming a stronger bond of trust in their friendship as she succeeds. Upon facing the final villains, she's unfortunate enough to follow Swatch in being corrupted by them, attacked directly and infected with the essence of Yai, making her snarky and rude, while Swatch took the symptoms of a love potion from the I Love You virus, primarily known as Illy. After being freed from that nightmare, the three team up together to help Queen, whose code had been repaired after Swatch's return to normalcy and fighting, keeping Yai busy while Her Majesty took on Illy with her BattleBot. After the fight is won, the three move on to a relatively peaceful life in the castle of regular work shifts and hanging out in the time frame before curfew after clocking off. Tasque begins to become very confused as Swatch asks her about Spamton's behavior, having spent most of the time with the salesman on shared breaks. Those around her begin treating mere weeks as if they were months, her friend becoming more and more erratic and rather shifty with how he would look for something. Everything came to a head when she found him writhing in a pool of acid, sinking in after being clearly punched out of the found basement machine by Swatch. After telling the head butler to stay where they were, she sacrificed herself, jumping in and swimming after the Addison. After pushing him to the surface with her detached hands, she finds herself trapped towards the bottom with a detached leg, many parts of her machinery and system failing. Queen shows up just in time to handle a wireless data transfer so that she could be imported into a new body, but her confusion and distress over the situation turns further into sorrow when Swatch tells her to return to her duties and worry about nothing else, retracting their friendship with her and expressing great suspicion. For a few months, she would spend her time in confusion and depression, as she had only herself to sit with through the now deafening silence. She felt as if she was losing her mind, finding herself in frequent arguments with the head butler and receiving a lot of commentary about her being forgetful, something she's not capable of, as she has a photographic memory, recorded through the cameras set in her eyes. Every night, she would process them to more storage-kind sizes and add them to her overall database. During a replacement for some of her cooling fans, the argument is finally shut down when Queen asks Tasque what day it is. She's confused, but answers honestly, being shocked to find that she was off by nearly a month and a half. Digging through her files, Queen finds a multitude of corrupted ones, pulling them to the screen and finding all of the missing memories, each night topped by Spamton heading out the door of her room after a kind, happy conversation. What brought a look of horror and shock to Swatch's face was the instant right before her sleep mode set in which the salesman would turn around and choose to cancel her memory processing. The android would begin to tremble as she reprocessed and relived those days, the sickening betrayal making her tremble as she felt it again and again, each time hurting just as badly as the first. After it's done, she turns slowly and tells Swatch, "The most egregious curse you could have put on me was the inability to cry." Before being ordered to her room by Queen, Swatch attempts to apologize, but she is certainly not in the mood to hear it, dipping on the topic for about a week or so before finally hearing them out and making amends, right before the events of Season's greetings. From there, the two have a healthy friendship that morphs into a relationship about a year later for Holidate, keeping a very wholesome, caring, and comforting tone throughout most of the ship art that you'll see me make of them. Yeah, I put her through the ringer, but honestly, I feel like her personality and history in my AU is better for it, giving her more character development, more personality, and a more refined set of things that she would do for her friends. If you genuinely listened to all of that and actually want to see this come to fruition, thank you wholeheartedly. I'm very happy to hopefully offer a character version of herself that the community can connect with and find endearing. And I hope that you'll stick around for future episodes like this, because I really want to flesh out more characters. For more bare-bones explanations and maybe some bare-bones additions or revisions to characters that I may not be so familiar with, or maybe slightly familiar with, please leave requests in the comments. I'll do my best to get to them. Thank you kindly, and have a good night.